Hey, just going over my notes. I'm gonna do another video on knife skills because I love chopping stuff up. I love my knife. I love knife skills, but not everybody does. I get more complaints from people that say they like the late part of cooking. They like the heat part. They hate the prep part. And you know, I can fix this right away because I used to be in the very same boat on a large scale, and I figured out a way to make a puzzle out of it. Count your knife strokes. Let me show you what I mean. My knife is over here. You know, years ago, actually my first job out of culinary school was at the National Security Agency in Washington, D.C. I was part of a team that fed 15,000 people breakfast and 15,000 people lunch. This is a lot of production. So first day on the job, you know, I'm the plebe, the low guy on the totem pole, and they had me chop onions. And just start chopping onions. Well, the day came to an end 10 hours later and I had still been chopping onions. Next day, you know what I did? I chopped onions. And then the next day it was peppers or carrots or celery or whatever it was. I spent all day long with a knife in my hand. But here's the key. They told me that I could go home when I was done chopping all the onions. This is a big difference between that and you gotta chop stuff until the end of the shift. So I figured out if I could find a more efficient way to chop onions, then I could go home 45 minutes early. So I searched constantly every day, how can I cut one knife stroke, 2 knife strokes off each onion on thousands of onions? That adds up to 45 minutes. Let me show you exactly what I came up with, because using your kitchen knife is so important to the preparation of your food. It makes it look better. It makes it cook better. And when I first got to the National Security Agency and I was trained to take an onion like this, cut it in half, and then cut both ends off the onion, cast them aside, which is a good amount of waste, but we'll cut both ends off the onion. We peel the onion, all right? We peel the onion, then the guy told me half, 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 half. And I don't know if you do this also, but cut that in half, then 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 come back with this mess here and cut that in half, and then, wait a minute, where was my last cut? Cut that in half, and then, are you familiar with this? The mezzaluna, right? Where you go chase things all over the cutting board, and all this does is make an inconsistent mess. And I'm pretty sure I took 20, 30, 40 knife strokes on that onion. What I figured out is if I want to go home 45 minutes early, it's really simple. First cut is from root end to blossom end, because it's the root end that holds the onion together while you're chopping. I'll cut off the blossom end and put that aside and peel the onion. Now let's count the knife strokes. I've got what? 1 knife stroke to cut the onion in half. The second knife stroke took the blossom end off. I'm going to take a third horizontal knife stroke here, cutting the onion in half, but not all the way back to the root so the onion stays together. Then with the tip of my knife, 1, 2, 3, what are we up to? 2, 3, 6 knife strokes. Now I've got this checkerboard pattern in the onion, but it stays together because I kept the root end intact. And now I can go with my tip fulcrum method down that pattern that I made, and I have consistently cut onion now in less than 10 knife strokes. If I did it the way that the guy trained me to do, I'd be there till 10 o'clock at night. With my new efficient way of counting knife strokes, I was out of there in plenty of time to hang out with my friends and have a good time. Here's another one. Right? These tomatoes. This drives me crazy. The chambers in a tomato go up and down. They go from root end to blossom end. When people cut a tomato in half this way, then they're not getting to all the chambers. There's a chamber back here. Here, I'll show you. Because now you got to make another cut, and there's where these other seeds are. So that's 4 cuts to do this tomato, instead of if you cut the tomato across the equator of a tomato, you open up the chambers where the seeds are, and then you just dig them out get a bowl here, then you just dig them out with your fingers. That's one knife stroke and 2 little finger strokes to clean a tomato and get that going. But my biggest pet peeve of all is when people are doing peppers. Bell peppers, these red peppers, it works for green peppers, yellow peppers, any color pepper. It drives me crazy when people just lop the top off the pepper. Okay, wasting all that. Now, seeds all over my cutting board that I got to go back and clean up later. But now what? Now I take my knife and awkwardly try and get the rest of the seeds in the cage, and then it done. Oh, now seeds everywhere and so on. This is like 10 knife strokes to clean a red pepper. Again, I don't get to go home and see my beloved wife. I figured out a way that I can clean this pepper, not spill a single seed, in 2 knife strokes. Would you believe it? 2 knife strokes. Watch this. The first stroke goes behind the flesh, but in front of the pith, the cage, and I get this first fillet, and I've left that white pith on the cage. The second cut is radially, again, in front of the white pith, but behind the red flesh, turning the pepper in 1, 2 knife strokes. I've cleaned that pepper, and I have the cage there. That is the way to limit your knife strokes and get out of the kitchen even faster. So from 10 knife strokes to clean this pepper, from 8 knife strokes to clean a tomato, from an uncountable knife strokes to create inconsistent cut onions, I always figured out a way to be more efficient in the kitchen and enjoy my prep more because I was able to count knife strokes. Now look, it doesn't have to be a chore, your kitchen prep. Chefs do it all day long, standing on their feet, and they make it interesting by making it more efficient and studying it. Count your knife strokes, and you'll find a more efficient way to do things. This is one of the skills that are so important in the kitchen, but home cooks, they ignore it entirely. Your food will cook better and look better. And it incidentally is the first skill that we talk about in my free online web class. It's the 5 skills taught in culinary school that are essential in all of cooking. And I've just added some new sessions this week, so you want to go ahead and grab your spot before someone else does. Because when you learn how to do your knife skills, how you're working with your knife correctly, you save time. You have fun. Your food cooks better. It looks better when you use your kitchen knives correctly. I think I got a soup ahead of me. We'll talk soon.